Welcome back. So we wake up to hear the news of the fall of Sambisa Forest. Then we wake up again to get another news that where the elusive Shekau is back and he's saying they're not defeated and Nigeria should be careful. And the army dismissing that. Plus other security issues across the country. These are some of the things we'll be looking at today with retired Army Colonel Tony Nyiam. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, let's begin with the biggest news this Christmas period, which a lot of people were excited about. What was your own reaction when you heard that news?
Excited, the capture of Sambisa. I think commendations obviously go to the president for his decisive leadership and strategic direction, which with respect to two things that are related: war on corruption and the national security challenges. The relationships are these. By virtue of the war on corruption, the army or the military is better using the money earmarked for military operations, and the outcomes we're seeing. Commendations also, I would say, go also to the Minister of Defense, who has not been unduly interfering in the operations management. There's been less wrangling and there's been better coordination, assisted by his Chief of Defense Staff. So, in other words, the armed forces is in effect in a better position to comply with the strategic direction of the president. Also, in this issue of commendations, we need to commend the Chief of Army Staff, General Buratai, who has been, I would say, he has adopted a hands-on approach on operations management. We also, the Chief of Air Staff, was given good coverage. But above it all is Major General Lucky Irabo, who is both the head of the military counterinsurgency in the Northeast and the theater commander of operations, Lafia Dole. They have been able to, would I say, manage and achieve successes which are very, one would say, great. But we must make a distinction. What they've achieved is very much on the conventional warfare aspects in recapturing territories. We must not lose sight that there's the unconventional warfare, which to my humble estimates, we have achieved, I would say, over 50% degrading of the threat, but we're still at it. In other words, with all these terrorists now scattered all over, they will now resort to hiding and going back to these unconventional methods. In our major cities, Abuja, Lagos, Maiduguri, Port Harcourt, and the rest. And in that regards, we all should be very careful, for example, in Lagos, where we are celebrating in a few days, I think in a day or two, the New Year, where we will have people gathering in big numbers to celebrate. We should, the security agencies and people should be very careful about beefing up securities to prevent us having incidences, like we saw what happened in Berlin, in Germany, because the terrorists take advantage of crowd to take certain actions. That is on that level. So I must say we must commend the president and his team for what they've done so far. I say this in terms of immediate responses. They have actions they've taken against the terrorists. But I think on the long-term picture, in other words, what do we see? We have crises all over. We hear what is happening in southern Kaduna. We also see things happening in kidnapping and all that. They are indications of things, challenges that we'll have to deal with.
When you say things, challenges we'll have to deal with.
Yes.
Who should be dealing with this? Because it would look like the army or the military is somewhat stretched. I mean, they're having to face different issues from different fronts. Now they're done with Sambisa Forest. They're still not done with the post-Sambisa Forest situation. They still have to be able to move around and pick up some of these things.
True.
Who should be handling this?
Fantastic. I think you really hit the armed forces is overstretched, and including the national other agencies like the SSS, the police. Thanks to God, if you look at yesterday's paper or two, there's a lot of police recruitment. There's need for much more recruitment to the police force. And there's a need for, I have often said, that we need a fourfold increment of our manpower in the armed forces and other agencies. At the moment, for our population, the size of our forces compared to the population is the lowest compared to all our neighboring countries. So I would have thought that with the unemployment we have, and we need for reorientation of our youths, many of them who are prone to rushing to things like cultism, many of them who are prone to rush to things like criminality, the military should have been a vehicle for absorbing some of these youths. We saw examples. Castro did it in Cuba, where with the decadence the Americans left in Cuba, where you had pimps, prostitutes, crooks. Castro absorbed them into the army, trained them, gave them a new focus of life, and they became better citizens. I think this is the opportunity, more than any time, where many of our youths are unemployed. We need to really have an armed forces that reflects our population and the importance of security. Through much more recruitment into the armed forces, I would say fourfold, quadrupling. Through such recruitment, the army can then be better serving national security agencies, and can also serve as a medium for intermediate technology transfer. In other words, through the army, these new people enlisted can be given other skills, like being introduced to modern farming techniques. They can be given other skills, they can learn other skills. So the army can be a means of taking these our youths and training them for the future. Yeah. At the same time, serving them as national security guards.
You know, I was smiling because some days back we heard in the social media and on some news media about the army sending people to Australia to go and learn farming, and you're just here talking about how these new recruits can also be taught new techniques in farming. Is that not going to be a distraction from the other side of the primary responsibility of security?
No, not at all. You see, as part of training of the military, it's always been, for example, in the army engineers which I belonged, we always had a second profession. By training, a quantity surveyor, and I was a military engineer, and also a combatant. So was Olusegun Obasanjo. He was a civil engineer, and he was still an army officer. In the Signals Corps, people have different trades, and of course, I don't think that it will detract from them doing their jobs. It is very important. We don't need to go to Australia. Songhai, which is a Songhai Agricultural Training Center, which is in Cotonou, was started by Nigerian two priests, and they have started schemes. One in Cross River, in Delta. They can really train a lot of our troops. And then Babcon, that is the Seventh-day Adventist, they have a very interesting farming scheme. So all these schemes can be, amongst other things, avenues using the military. You know, with the military training and regimentation, you take a Nigerian from whatever setting he is and gives him a new perspective of life. If you look at Once a soldier leaves, someone is recruited to the army, he's no more as local, as provincial as he's been, you know. So I think the military can be a vehicle for absorbing our youths and training them, because the extent of unemployment in itself is a security threat.
Okay. We'll take a moment at that point, and when we'll come back, we'll bring in Marpa into the conversation.